Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Placerville City Council meeting tonight. I am covering for Mayor Dennis Thomas tonight. We also have Jackie No, who will be absent. This is actually my first meeting leading in person. All the other ones that I have been a chair of have still been on Zoom. So bear with me if I fumble around a little bit. The mute button is in a different place. So.
You'll do great.
So we'll call this meeting to order at 6:04, and if you all would join me in
504. First fumble.
5:04. If you all would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Regina, roll call vote, or roll call?
Councilmember Borelli,
Here.
Councilmember Zaragoza,
Here.
Vice Mayor Taylor,
Here.
Mayor Thomas will be noted as absent, as well as Councilmember No.
All right, thank you. We have a couple of ceremonial items, and it's my honor to give these proclamations tonight. The first one, item 3.1, is for Pink in the Night, All Colors, All Cancers Proclamation. Whereas cancer rates of all kinds continue to rise in America, whereas Images of Hope El Dorado has hosted the Pink in the Night awareness campaign throughout the month of October in conjunction with National Breast Cancer Awareness Month since 2013, and whereas Images of Hope's mission is to create opportunities where cancer patients, their family members, teachers, and community can come participate in all aspects of the arts and foster an environment where creativity can flourish with hope healing here, and serves all El Dorado County community members touched by cancer. And whereas Images of Hope has launched the All Colors, All Cancers campaign to raise awareness of all types of cancer, early screenings, and healing arts and movement therapy to all those touched by cancer. And whereas local artist Andrew Vonderschmidt has been commissioned to design and fabricate an installation to raise awareness of all cancers, and whereas the art installation, a large depiction of an awareness ribbon in all colors, will be temporarily installed at the Bell Tower on Main Street throughout the month of October. And whereas the City of Placerville joins communities across our nation to increase the awareness about the importance for everyone to make an informed decision with their healthcare provider about early detection and testing for all types of cancer. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Vice Mayor Taylor, on behalf of Dennis Thomas, Mayor of the City of Placerville, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2021 as All Cancers, All Colors, All Cancers Awareness Month in the City of Placerville, and I commend this observance to all citizens. Thank you. And Andrew is here to accept this. You're welcome to say a few words if you would like to step up to the podium.
Would it be funny if I said, I prepared a speech? Because I didn't know I'd be called up. Thank you very much. It means a lot to Images of Hope. It means a lot to me. It's a personal matter, and I appreciate that you're making this proclamation happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for doing that, Andrew. It's a great asset to our downtown.
And the next proclamation, item 3.2, is the Seroptimist 100th Anniversary Proclamation. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Placerville declaring October 3rd, 2021 Seroptimist International of Placerville Day. Whereas the Seroptimist organization, founded on October 3rd, 1921, works to economically empower women and girls through access to education. And whereas the Placerville Seroptimus Club was formed in 1939, and whereas the Placerville Seroptimus Club has been an integral part of Placerville's community for the past 82 years, and whereas the Placerville Seroptimus Club has improved the lives of Placerville women and girls in the past 5 years by dispersing approximately 10 Seroptimus Live Your Dream Awards to local women to help them get the education and training they need to improve their employment prospects and economic standing, holding 3 Seroptimus Dream It, Be It events that put 35 local girls on the path towards achieving their career goals, helping to prevent human trafficking by assisting in presenting a human trafficking awareness curriculum at Herbert Green Middle School, working with local law enforcement, sex trafficking, and domestic violence organizations to get women the legal and economic resources they need to break free from their former lives, presenting approximately 30 scholarships to high school seniors to further their education, and dispensing over $50,000 in emergency funds to women through the club's Helping Hands program. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Vice Mayor Taylor, on behalf of Dennis Thomas, Mayor of the City of Placerville, do hereby proclaim October 3rd, 2021, Seroptimus International of Placerville Day, and encourage extending congratulations to Seroptimus for its 100th anniversary and to celebrate the Placerville Club for their many contributions to our community. And Barbara Smiley, you're here to accept this. Feel free to say a couple words if you'd like.
Madam Vice Mayor, Barbara has asked me, she has lost her voice, and so she's asked me to read a statement from her. She's a board member of the Seroptimus International of Placerville. And the statement is, Seroptimus International of Placerville, SIP, would like to thank you for this honor. Seroptimus International of the Americas was started 100 years ago with the charter of our first club in Oakland, California. SIP started just 8 years later. We are pleased to serve our community by making things better for women and girls through education and empowerment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all you do in the community and for being here to accept this tonight.
Barbara's been a member of our community for many, many years. I've known her, and she just has really done a lot of community work, and I thank you, Barbara, for continuing.
All right, with that, we're going to move on to adoption of the agenda.
I'll move to adopt the agenda and make one, I'd ask if we could move item 12.1 to right before item 6.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Moving on to item
Vice
12.1.
Mayor Taylor.
Go ahead.
Vice Mayor Taylor.
Yes.
This is Moni Brahimi, City Attorney. I just wanted to have the record reflect that under item number 4, closed session report, the council did not meet in closed session, and we do not have a closed session to report. And can we also please have roll call votes? Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Okay, roll call vote, Regina?
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Zaragoza?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Taylor?
Aye.
And Councilmember No is absent, as well as Mayor Thomas. Thank you.
All right, item 12.1 is to adopt a resolution approving an agreement with the El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce for a not-to-exceed amount of $50,000 to provide a marketing program for the city of Placerville. And City Manager Morris has this staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you recall, on August 31st, we held a special meeting to review, actually this is our second meeting to review ARPA funding and potential uses of those funds. There were some a lot of discussion and different programs, projects, et cetera, that came before the council. At that meeting also, one of the proposals you received was from the El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce to provide a marketing services program to the city. At that meeting on August 31st, you gave us some direction. We came back on September 14th, and the marketing program was included on September 14th as part of our resolution approving ARPA funding for different programs and projects. The action before you tonight is simply memorializing that through an agreement with the El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce to implement the marketing program. And so that is what is before you on your agenda tonight. With us tonight are Laurel Brentbaum and Jody Franklin from the Chamber, who can answer questions or provide any other details you may want regarding the plan. So, thank you.
Thank you. Bringing it back to council for questions at this time.
Not questions, but I thought it would be good if the chamber wanted to just kind of give a brief synopsis. Again, I know we went over this at the budget hearing, but I thought it would be good for the public. And I know I've gotten a couple of questions about this item from constituents. So just to kind of, nothing, just give an overview again, just kind of, what exactly this is going to be doing, how you're going to be reaching out to businesses and promoting them in the city.
So could I follow up on that?
Yes.
Hi, Jody. I brought this up before, but that was kind of the same thing I wanted to have you reiterate how you're going to, because somebody said to me, oh, they're going to just talk about downtown. And I said, no, they're going to talk about every district. And so would you address that too, please? Oh,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So that was one of the distinct parts of this kind of scope of work and project that we brought forth is the 3 distinct business districts. So historic Main Street, yes, but also a business district in Placerville Drive and Broadway. So I feel like all 3 of those districts have their own personality, but then you've got this really great connection with Highway 50 between the 2 of them. I think that presents a lot of opportunity. So I would say working together with partnering and also the collaboration and partnership parts of things. So why hasn't that downtown worked with Apple Hill in a more effective way? Let's connect those 2. Why hasn't Placerville Drive and the 3 business districts, how can they work together more collaboratively instead of in these silos? Everybody has a kind of their own thing, but this program would bring more into the mix. So then we're elevating the brand and brand awareness and customer loyalty. So those were all kind of goals and objectives of the program. It's going to take a while. It's not just a one-time campaign, social media, blast them. That's not what it is. It's several parts kind of putting in place. But with the recovery portion of things, we want to actually have some deliverables after this. So we want to elevate Placerville in the awareness, but also at the end of this, we want to have a Placerville-specific database. Those are people that opt in and say, yes, I want to know more about Placerville for whatever reason. Also, we want some digital assets, images, video, that sort of thing. And so then when you leave this, at the end of this year, I'm hoping you're going to go, wow, that was awesome. Let's find the money and keep this sucker rolling. But if it's not, you have these digital assets, you have something in your hands that you can now use. They're evergreen. Now you can use them for the rest of the time that you want to promote Placerville. Great. Did that answer your questions?
Yes, sounds great.
Jody, what would you envision the first 90 days to look like?
Well, I would say breaking those 3 down. First of all, we need to start putting in some of the infrastructure. We need to find out if there's a database, if there's not a database, and start setting one up, and then start getting those in place. I want to find out what we already have, and then take a specific first 30 days. It's easy just to blanket right around us, 50 miles around us with social media. That's easy to do. But then as we're doing that, we're going to retarget them. So. And I would love to see a restaurant week, but that's further down the road. But so if they're coming in and let's say they're showing some interest in the independent restaurant, we're like, you like that? What about Smith Flat House? What about, are you interested in Mexican? What about over here? I could see a home goods, I could see a car, like, can you buy a car, build a car, detail a car, wash a car? That's something that can tie all these three together. So I would say the first 90 days, we're going to get a campaign together for the first 30, just blast it out there right away. And then after that, and meanwhile, we're trying to find some information about who our customers are. And so I'm going to have to meet with businesses in order to do that. They've got databases too, so we want to be able to start collaborating, seeing, I want the Wine Association to start working with some of these groups, Sip and Stroll, we need to start thinking in terms of, we need to find out what's going on now, and then what our next steps are.
Gotcha. And then will this include, or would it be separate? We do some of these events in Placerville. Most of them, I believe all of them here are on Main Street. But will that include, I'm trying to think of the right way, promotion of those two, or is this just focused on the businesses themselves?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. We will promote that, and we'll put some money behind it as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Like I said before, a lot of the recovery funds are kind of up here, and I want this to trickle down so the businesses can actually feel it, right? They feel it. They've heard from me. They've seen their name. They've seen their place, and I want the people behind the place. So, it's great to say shop local, but you got to live like a local. What does that sound like? Why should they shop like a local, right? Because you've got this person and that person. We've got some really great feel-good stories. I want to tell those stories right off the bat about how they survived. It's like, boy, if it wasn't for our community, I would have never got through COVID. I would have never got through Caldor Fire. I mean, so many of those stories are out there in just such a small space that if we can start feeding that in there, I think we'll be off and running.
Thank you.
Jody, I have a question. Under the overall strategic goals and objectives, those all sound wonderful, but I was wondering if it would be possible to add a buy local campaign in there, or if you think that this is not the right place for that.
No, absolutely, but not just that. I mean, I feel like shop local, buy local is more of a guilt complex. It's like, no, that should be kind of our DNA, right? And that is our DNA. Let's talk to some people. Let's give them the why as to shop local. So not just a sticker on the window that says shop local because you're supposed to. Really give them the real reason why they should be doing that. It's because this guy has been he's worked here, and he came here because he chose this place, and this is, in there we can weave in some of your, $20 here, give him the money kind of thing. But so far what I've seen on shop local and buy local is, I guess it's not the right terminology, but a guilt campaign, which it shouldn't be. It should be the why.
Yeah.
So I would say definitely there's going to be a buy local, but also deeper than that, why? Why should you buy local?
So what I'm hearing from you, which wasn't clear when I was reading this material, is that we're not just going to be targeting out-of-town tourists to come.
Oh, absolutely.
But
No.
also community members.
No, and online we can do that, right?
Okay.
We can draw a line and exactly who we want. Boy, we're getting, we can go up the divide, we can go down Fairplay, kind of where they're traveling in, where would be the logical step to pick them up. If they're an event, Hangtown, like if they're at the fairgrounds, draw a circle around that, the Hangtown Ball or whatever is over there, and just tell them, all those people, what's on Placerville Drive, why they're there, that they don't even know about, because they came in off the freeway, and that's all they saw was the fairgrounds. So now we want to tell them, oh, well, right over here is a Mexican restaurant, right over here, so that's the kind of buy local or, thing I'm thinking of, kind of get them on their way in, get them on their way out, and target them, retarget them, residents and visitors alike.
Okay. I don't need the buy local badge per se, but I just wanted to make sure that we were also encouraging, and giving people a reason, like you said, why to come downtown and to come to our different districts.
Right.
And to not just shop online completely. So.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions?
I think so.
Any comments?
One comment I would like to make, I guess, it never ceases to amaze me to learn about folks that we have as residents of our community who are just outstanding in some particular field or something. And I was thinking, gosh, this might be a time to bring that forth. And some of the businesses that we have, and they're kind of like hidden away, and maybe they don't make a splash because they're not a storefront or something, that just interest. I mean,
Right.
just to show that we really have all these really great, people and businesses that do this for people all over the world,
Right,
And
exactly.
to highlight that, I just think it just elevates our community too.
I agree, absolutely.
Jody, one more question. What percentage of businesses do you think that you're going to make contact with in these districts?
Well, if there's already a business, I like Placerville Drive. They kind of had a loose kind of group there for a while. I'd like to go back into there because I would love to meet as a group. If not, I'm going to talk to some of the bigger players. But when we get down to small stories, whatever that might be. I mean, I don't really know. I'm not going to go canvassing every single business on Placerville Drive, but I will tell you that Placerville Drive or Broadway, either one of them is going to have a raised elevation. So I'll definitely know more about those places, and so will you by the end of this thing.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and I can think of at least a couple of council members that can assist with
That's awesome.
getting some folks to put together as well. I mean, 'cause that does make sense to have some groups of folks just to meet and kind of get a little bit better sense so that you're not just, it's not a good use of your time if you're knocking on each door, but to bring
Right.
a group
Exactly.
of them
Right.
together.
It's a hard nut to crack. I mean, it really is, because people they're busy, and, as you said, we had a group for a while. I'm talking Placerville Drive, and I don't know what happened, but everybody scattered. But then when they've got a cause, and I'm trying to remember what the one thing is, and we had a great turnout to address that. So maybe if we get a group that, gets some publicity out there, that we could at least create some kind of meeting there, downtown, Broadway, and do it that way.
Well, and give them some benefit from, because you got your own business. I mean, you've had your own businesses, you're busy making a living. So
Right.
this phone call, even though it's a phone call, is just more than you can even bear at this point. So, but if there's a definite benefit to taking that phone call or meeting with this group, your $50 goes up to $500, then there's a more of an inspiration. Hopefully that will continue too, because there's a lot of groups outside of this, the Fair Play Wine Association, El Dorado Wine Association, Georgetown Divide, whatever the group is, B&B Association, they don't know who to work with in those business districts either.
That's true.
So, I can see some opportunity for sure.
Great.
And Jody, this is not going to cost businesses anything to participate in because the city's paying for it
No.
completely, right? Maybe they'll have additional advertising opportunities, but to be part of this program.
No,
content.
we're not going to charge anybody
Okay.
anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And
If
thanks
we
for
all
being-
had Jody's enthusiasm, we do well.
Thanks, Jody.
All right, you're welcome.
All right, let's go ahead to public comment on this item.
Hi, everybody. Mandy Rodriguez. Yeah, I'm just wondering, 50 grand is a lot of money. And will the people that are benefiting from this, Patty Borelli, I believe you have property, commercial property. You'll be benefiting from this. Dennis Thomas and his wife has commercial property. They'll be benefiting from this, so they should probably recuse themselves. Mr. Saragosa and Jackie No were endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce, so that's kind of awkward to be awarding them money. I would like to see the city support the events that we already have. Hangtown Days, they had to pay $1,000 to Parks and Rec. We also have the Christmas Parade, which is not really being funded by the city. So there are already existing events that are not being helped out by you. So maybe some of that $50,000 can be spread out amongst them. Also, as a I own a business, but when I had my shop on Main Street, I felt like the Chamber of Commerce was my best friend until they realized that I wasn't going to sign up with the Chamber of Commerce. So it just doesn't seem very fair, not trying to be mean to you ladies. I know you work very hard, but it doesn't seem very fair, and it definitely seems like a conflict of interest to just award $50,000 with really there's nothing in this scope of work that says anything about about supporting small businesses or marketing to locals. Like, it's very vague. So maybe we should put a little more work into it and say exactly what we're going to do. But I would like you to include some of the things that we already have going, some of our events that need help. You know, Hangtown Days was an amazing event, probably the best ever. And we should get some support from the city from that. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Taylor and members of the council, Kathy Lishman. Following a couple of things, I was surprised because I know you've been talking for a long time about this money, but it was so kind of overwhelming to look at all the requests that came in and then this and that. And I hadn't seen anything in the minutes about the chamber making a presentation to you. I did find today one spot where you had a description of all of the lists where the chamber had made an application. So I was kind of surprised that there wasn't more discussion about the options of using that money. That's all I'm saying. And I had a question about if the chamber is a member of the Economic Development Committee, do they have a conflict? So it's just a question I'm asking. I'm not saying that. I want to thank the chamber for being the sponsor for getting the grant from the Latrobe Fund to finish the Monument Garden. We had to have a sponsor. The money couldn't go directly to the city, and so I'm very appreciative. And Laurel had said, this is your chamber at work, and it certainly was, and I appreciate that. I'm surprised there's no business owners here tonight. I didn't know if they're aware of it going into it tonight. I was surprised there was no budget, and the description is very vague, but the oral presentation gave more information. And I want you not to forget to let the residents be a part of this too. Not everybody has a business on one of those three business districts. So the residents, we're part of the community too. We should be part of how this money is spent and promoted. One thing I would like to suggest is that one of the things that helps with economic development and getting people to come here and love the city has to do with other things. It has to do with the historic aspects of the town. It has to do with the parks. It has to do with Goldbug Park. It has to do with the pool. And so there are other parts of the city that should be promoted in this also. And the one thing I want to suggest is that if there is all this money available, the city needs to put some of it into, I say, beautification, but it's into improving the city, into fixing up the parking lot signs, into taking care of the weeds, into making sure that areas that aren't landscaped are landscaped. I would like to see the city having more professional help in some of the landscaping. And what that does is that invites people to come, and it invites people to come back. If they find a quaint, neat, cute, historic town, they will be back. And so I think there's a lot more to it than just how you're going to promote the businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Vice Mayor, council members, Laurel Bremp, I'm CEO of the Chamber. One of the points that I want to make real clear is that this is not a chamber membership program. This program is inclusive of all the city of Placerville within the city limits. Any business, any community organization. will be benefiting from this scope of work with this contract for service. Someone mentioned giving the chamber money. I want to be real clear. The city council is not giving the chamber money. You are providing, we have a contract for a service. We are providing a service that you find more beneficial to contract out than to try to have it done in-house with your own staff. We have the expertise, we have a proven track record. We've been working with the County of El Dorado for years with our Visitors Authority. So it's an honor to be able to provide something that I believe is very long overdue for the city of Placerville. If you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Laurel.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this item?
Good evening, my name is Vice Mayor Taylor, Mark Akuna, city resident. I'd like to just bring up a couple of points. First, a very clear example. Several years ago, the Gold Bug Development Committee hired the chamber to engage, excuse me, under a number of specific events, and working with Jody, the attendance and the social media hits, and the fundraising capabilities at Goldbug over a multi-season period absolutely skyrocketed. So the presentation that you just heard this evening from her is absolutely spot on. In this day and age, I believe the Chamber does know how to use social media and all those free connections to the best benefit of the city. Goldbug Park was certainly an example of that. And I'm sure that they would happily agree with me that it was through working with the Chamber that their attendance and exposure just set new records, and those records were shared year over year here at the council. Second thing that is interesting is the concern about ongoing events. And you heard very clearly that the Chamber intends to promote this entire city. This is not about historic Main Street. This is not about downtown district. This is about all three business districts. And yes, they are connected. And yes, they do need to succeed together. I think there's a tremendous opportunity right now for everybody to rise up through the COVID and all the various issues that we've all survived. Seemed like a very smart time to re-engage with the Chamber. I should also add that back before the Great Recession, it was very standard for the City Council to award multiple thousands of dollars every year to organizations like the Chamber, like Community Pride, like the Goldbug Historic Organization. There was no concern about conflict of interest or graft or some unfair assertions preying favoritism between the two districts. I would encourage you to move forward with the proposal. I've found the Chamber to be very responsive if there's any question with any of the funding that they are granted. It's a great opportunity to see this be a wonderful recovery and the Chamber's efforts being a leader in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the council for...
Vice Mayor Taylor, I would like to respond to the conflict of interest issue.
Sure. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. There have been a few public comments inquiring as to whether there is a conflict of interest in council members who own businesses within the city that would participate in this decision. What is before you this evening is a contract for $50,000 with the Chamber of Commerce for general marketing of the city. There is no decision about specific businesses or the specific types of marketing. Therefore, there is neither a Government Code Section 1090 conflict of interest, nor is there a Political Reform Act conflict, because none of the council members have a direct financial interest in this contract. Again, this is between the city and the Chamber of Commerce, which is an independent entity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Any comments from Council members.
Just one, thank you, Mona, for that clarification. Appreciate that. Cleveland, I think also on this particular contract, it's sort of, well, it's not sort of, but it's like a pay-as-you-go. So we're not just transferring 50,000 to the Chamber of Commerce. It's on a billing basis.
Right, they will submit monthly invoices to us, and we will pay just like we would on other contracts that we do.
Up to
So,
50.
up to the 50,000, correct.
Thank you.
I would just like to make a comment that came up in a couple of the public comments, but this funding is from our ARPA funds, the American Rescue Funds. We still have $750,000 that have not been allocated, and we have some ideas what we want to use that money for, but there is time for, if community members have ideas on how they would like to see that money, there is time to contact the council and city staff with those suggestions. It's not an either or thing at this time. I really like the ideas of beautification around the city. I love that. This contract is for marketing businesses to help recover post-COVID, but there's nothing saying that we can't take those ideas and run with those as well.
I agree. We actually talked about some of those, the money going to a lot of those causes that Ms. Lishman talked about. So with that, I would like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution approving an agreement with the El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce for a not-to-exceed amount of $50,000 to provide a marketing program for the city of Placerville.
I'll second.
All right, with the first and a second, Regina, could we get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Zaragoza?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Taylor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, next item, 6.1, brief comments by the city council. I will start with Patty.
Well, I think my comments, probably, again, repeating myself, but unfortunately, this have occasion that this went on and on and on. And I want to thank, again, all our law enforcement, everybody that was involved in fighting this horrible fire that we've had, and thank you all so much. I just appreciate it, and I know we all do. You've seen all the letters in the paper from all the groups and everybody that's just, I just want to commend you again for everything that you've done, and all our citizens for all they've done too, and that are doing. So, and then I had the opportunity to attend the League of Cities convention. The three of us actually did, and it was great, and they did a fine job of, we all wore masks. We had to present credentials, and we were really monitored, and so hopefully we're all going to stay well, and everybody that attended. But it was a great convention, and I commend them also for all they had to put up with to do it. And it was in the newly remodeled convention center, which is huge now. And Kara and I mentioned that it was too bad it was ending that day because we were just beginning to find our way around. So anyway, it was a great convention. So that was it.
And Michael.
Yes, I really ditto what Patty said. It was nice actually to get, at least for Sacramento, this was sort of their kickoff, if you will, to reopening. I mean, it's still, like I said, my office is on K Street, and it's still, I mean, everything around me is still boarded up. So I'm hoping that as conventions and as the Playhouse reopens, the theater, that will start working for them to kind of get going as well. But it was a really good convention. It was, I mean, it was so big, it was hard to even see how many people were there because it's just, you're sort of more spread out than it was in the past. But a lot of good information. I think a lot of the stuff that we've been, whether it was homelessness or pensions, fire prevention, I mean, just a lot of the topical topics that are of a concern to our constituents. And so it was great to have you both. And I'll leave the bad news to Kara, which was on Sunday, unfortunately. And then again, a big thank you to all the community for everything that they did, from the faith community to individual members, to everybody. I mean, everyone that I know that lived here did something to help during that time. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank everybody.
Thank you, Michael. I'm actually going to let you cover Sunday.
Oh, all right. All right, so Sunday, Vice Mayor Taylor was our voting member.
Oh, that was Friday.
Oh,
It was Friday.
I was like, did something
Oh,
happen
no,
Sunday?
I meant.
I was going to say, what did I miss out on?
I will let you. So you want to cover it then?
Sure, I'll cover it. And you can chime in too if I miss something. Oh, you had me really worried that a tragedy happened locally and I didn't hear about it. So as the voting member on two measures, one was about railroad right-of-ways, which did not really affect us, and that went off like a hitch. The other one was on the Amazon,
The tax.
Online sales.
the online sales tax, and that I was surprised to find when I got to the vote that the resolution presented to us was not the one that we had discussed at the council meeting and decided on how to vote on, and they decided to send it back to committee with encouraging them to advise with city council or city manager working group. So basically, it seems like it's a delay or kill tactic. I'm not sure if you've heard anything more on that or.
I have not. That's interesting, but it affects different cities differently.
Right.
And
It
so,
does, and there was a big controversy, but Kara stuck to her guns and she raised her hand and voted it for.
I voted for debate, but
For what we-
debate got shut down.
It got
Oh,
shut
really?
They
down,
didn't even
yeah.
debate it.
But they're going to refer it
So,
to the city managers.
Cleve, I really hope that you're on that city manager working group.
okay.
And it was disappointing.
It really was.
That being said, the rest of the league was really nice for the first time in years to be with elected officials from all over the state. There were, really inspirational speakers as the keynote speakers and so many great informational sessions. And it was inspiring to be there. Made me really realize how much you miss when you're not in person,
Right.
meeting with others. You really miss that ability to connect and discuss common issues. So that was that. So I wanted to update you on how that resolution on the sales tax went, and hopefully they do really work with city managers and come up with an equitable solution.
Cleve, you have your homework.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if they came back. I mean, the reality is we only meet once a year, so by the time this issue would come back as an official league, it'd be past next session of the legislature. So hopefully they'll come back with something soon. And I think we had just a quick conversation about, if not, we really do need to talk to our legislative delegation about doing something in the next legislative session to bring some clarity to this. I mean, I was with a friend from the city of Palmdale, and he was happy as can be because they have a center.
Right.
So they, obviously they were more than happy with the way the vote played out. But I mean, the vast majority of cities in California don't have these places. So it's disappointing the way the vote went. But I feel like the legislature, and we'll see how that works, but my guess will be there'll be at least a vehicle that will address this issue next session.
They probably don't know what we're.
So, and I will probably butcher this. So I'm going to have Dave talk through the change in sales tax that has affected cities throughout the state.
Thank you, Councilmember Saragosa. So the issue is one of the largest online retailer has two fulfillment centers. These are centers where inventory comes in when orders are placed and they're delivered out to the point of sale. There's two flavors of these fulfillment centers. One is owned directly by the online retailer. The other is third-party online retailers. For the city of Placerville, if somebody in the city or within the El Dorado County buys something online from this online retailer and it comes out of the third-party fulfillment center, we get about 20% of that sales tax. If it's a product out of the online retailer's owned fulfillment center, we don't get anything effective December 31st of last year, and that was the change. We were receiving that use tax, what we call use tax, and because the State Department of Tax and Fee Administration determined we should not, administratively it ended. So this is a pot of money that is growing. It's billions of dollars, and the crux of the matter is you have delivery trucks on your streets that are delivering goods that you're not receiving any taxes for. And so that's kind of the crux of the matter. So unless there's legislation to correct that, that unfunded impact to your roads, loss of revenue will continue. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dave.
And not only that, Dave, I think that it's responsible for a lot of small businesses closing down because folks are choosing to order online, whether it's just for convenience or, beating the price. I don't know, but we really lost a lot of small businesses, even right here in town, as well as all over. So there's got to be some give and take with this, and I think that that's a part of legislation that really hasn't been presented, is how they've been hurting, local businesses.
Yeah, great point. And if we had a fulfillment center, if there's a way to get one, I'd love it. It wouldn't be a problem, but unfortunately we don't. I think there's 5 or 6 cities, Cleve, that Mr. Morris, that have these fulfillment centers approximately. So it's I'm really surprised at how that issue rolled out at the conference, because it is a minority of cities that have these fulfillment centers.
Yeah. We were shocked.
All right. Moving on to item 6.2, receive and file public safety power shutoff report from utility liaison Mark Akuna.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As Mark's coming up, I want to thank Mark for all the help that he has given us over the last year since he left the council. He's been a great help in our communications with PG&E. Being able to speak the lingo, if you will, that is involved with different companies and different industries is extremely valuable. And the fact that Mark can do that and also knows our system well here in El Dorado County, and especially Placerville, has been a great help to us. And I think in many ways, some of the improvements that he will talk about tonight are due to his work and working with myself and working with our representative with PG&E to get some things done. We're not there yet. There's a lot more to do, but I appreciate Mark and his help and getting us to make as much progress as we have to date. So, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. I appreciate that nice introduction. Good evening again, Vice Mayor Taylor and council members, distinguished members of staff and both chiefs. Nice to be here this evening. I was last here in April of this year, and what I'd like to do, I submitted a report last week for your review, and I'd like to go over some of the highlights of that report, and then I'll get into a few recommendations and observations. Before I go any further, I, however, would like to thank all the city department heads and city staff for their ongoing support, and both our police chief and fire chief. Whenever any of the, as you can imagine, there's a lot of issues and questions behind the scenes as to, what a utility like as large as PG&E is doing in our city. As Cleve mentioned, we have met a couple of times this year. Mr. Warren, also as acting city manager, met. We have gone back to our existing PG&E rep, Brandon Sanders, and I'd like to take a minute and just thank him, welcome him back, and look forward to working with him to continue to make successes I have always given Brandon credit for a lot of the improvements that we enjoy. Improvements, I mean, by that I mean the generator set and the microgrid. And it is with thanks to the microgrid that this entire city is not in the dark during a north wind event. So very important working relationship there, so I hope we can continue to do well. Just on a high level, PG&E did install a new generator set on Broadway this year. Those are contract operations, and this year's gen set is bigger and prettier. Hopefully, I'm sure it's up to the job. And it's a very expensive and very time-consuming process for them to do that. So I'm glad to see that it did get done before September 1st, and appreciate their oversight. One of the ongoing issues that we had with some of the earlier outages was PG&E actually shutting off the transmission line, and those are the large lines that are up on the giant steel towers. We've had a little progress. We were able to actually get a little information from PG&E that gave us a better idea of what was driving their decisions. At this point, they promise us a automatic transmission switch improvement for PSPS season 2022. So you can be assured that at the end of the year, I will be touching bases with PG&E to see how that is coming. And as far as we know at this time, those switches would be installed on Broadway at the existing substation. Before I leave that particular topic,
Hey, Mark, on that point real fast, before you go on, what does that mean to us so if the switches are in, how much of Placerville's would be affected by them being able to flip that switch?
Well, sadly, the switches exist and they choose not to use them. They're an older style switch that is more labor intense. And so what they're doing is they're shutting all the substations down from Diamond Springs east to Pollitt Pines. And the automatic switching system, they would be able to leave Placerville substation energized. Camino Apple Hill substation would be energized. They would have a lot more variability, or they would choose to have a lot more variability. It reduces the length of time that the outages go on. If they have a transmission outage, the way their current system operates, the hierarchy demands that the transmission line is inspected first before any local distribution lines can be inspected. So we wait and we wait until the helicopter is available, it flies our line, and then the restoration process can begin. So it has a very high impact to the length of these power safety shutdowns. Thank you for asking that, Councilmember Sergos. Appreciate that. On Broadway, to finish up with that location, a request was made several years ago, myself, and a couple of former council members, in regards to the condition of the old Broadway Service Center that faces the Save Mart parking lot. We had a verbal agreement 2 years ago for PG&E to paint that building, do some landscaping and cleanup. They did do some cleanup, and the issue is stuck in the corporate chain. There hasn't been a response other than they're trying to decide whether they want to demolish the building or paint the building. I believe Save Mart did about $1 million investment, rebuild of their store, and it's extremely unfortunate that a huge, long building on Broadway that's owned by PG&E is in absolutely deplorable condition. So I'm going to be reaching out to Brandon again on that since he's back. I've sent him an email already today to just let you know. It is just something that they need to be a good neighbor. And with all the hard work that property owners, and I know Public Works is hoping to do a paving project, it would be really great to see PG&E step up and be a good neighbor and make some improvements to that property. Big visual impact. All right, I'll move on now quickly to some of the distribution issues that we began this year and some of our success stories. Broadway, the Hangtown Village Square is now been connected to the generator set, the microgrid. It will no longer be impacted by the PSP outages, other than just a small cutover and cutback time. So that is a huge improvement. It was a big investment on PG&E's part. We did work with them to try and give them some better economical approaches, but the one they chose works. The important thing is that those businesses, which are all the major retailers in all major services for our citizens when power is out, those businesses are all going to be on now. So I'm very happy with that. Eschaton Village, there have been some discussions there. Eschaton Village, as you know, is up on top of Blair Lane, close proximity to the substation. PG&E is committed to an undergrounding project to install a new feeder system that will put Eschaton Village directly connected to the substation for season 2022. And so I'll be following up to make sure that that project is getting out of engineering and be ready for coming to our city engineer for permitting, hopefully in early spring. The Placerville Pines and Western Slope care facilities on Washington and in Marshall Way. PG&E did a number of automatic switch installations to now include both of those facilities in the microgrid. One of the first big projects that we were successful for was their installation of new overhead equipment so that the entire Marshall Hospital facility is on the microgrid. And they have now, this year, done a number of projects and expanded that to include a pretty good-sized chunk of Cedar Ravine out to almost to Washington Street, and then up the hill all around the hospital. So all the convalescent facilities will now be removed from those outage impacts. At the same time, in July, we were successful in bringing it to their attention that the Placerville Drive area was being unfairly impacted, and they agreed to look at making some changes in the circuit layout so that a large portion of Placerville Drive, Ray Lawyer, and Fairlane will now be fed from a different low-impact substation, a substation that is not subject to north wind events. It's just an issue that Cleve and I and Mr. Warren also have been adamant about, the disparity between one side of Weber Creek and the other. How a tree knows to burn on one side, but it doesn't burn on the other side, is basically what they were telling us. I mean, not to make light of the subject, but we're glad that they listened. It was a partial improvement. This will now allow all of the government facilities, the county library, the fairground facility, which we just saw how important that is during the Caldor fire. It will now all be removed from the high-frequency north wind event outages. In next year, PG&E proposes to extend that work to the south side of Highway 50, and it will remove all the commercial businesses and county facilities along Forney Road and Low Highway in that area. The center's up on top of the hill there on Placerville Drive and Western Placerville Drive. So that's good news. And again, you can be sure that I will be tracking that as we move forward. One of the big frustrations this year is the what I call South Main Street. The current situation, PG&E spent a significant amount of time investigating Reservoir Street, Main Street, and Pacific Street, and determined that there was no way for them to remove the south side of Main Street from the PSPS outages. If you'll recall, because of the existing nature of the circuits, the north side of Main Street remains basically unaffected and in service, while the entire south side of Main Street from Bedford down to Reservoir is out. And so following some of the observations and some of the engineering approaches that they were taking, I have done some further research and found that what seems to be driving this is the California Public Utility Commission's fire rating. All of Main Street is rated either extreme or very extreme fire hazard. So very carefully followed that process through, and through with the help from David Orozco, Senator Dolly's office. He sent me some of the additional information from the Public Utility Commission, reconfirmed this urban rating, and it would be my recommendation to this council that you pursue a change in the fire rating from high fire or extreme fire to urban. I won't get into the details, but I have a lot of documentation that shows currently the PG&E system in the Diamond El Dorado area, lines that are rated urban, they are inaccessible. They go through high brush. They go through gray pine forests, massive fire risks that, for whatever reason, in the past, PG&E and the Public Utility Commission have rated those as urban. So I will be happy to work with the mayor or the vice mayor, council, whoever needs the information, so that we can elevate this issue to the level that it needs. Because undergrounding Reservoir Street is not the answer. So that is the crux of where we are. Oh, excuse me. One other quick thing is PG&E did spend quite a bit of money this year in installing automatic switching devices. And they were the bane of our city engineering department for a variety of reasons. All outside contractors. It was obvious to myself and Rebecca that the projects just had a tremendous number of omissions and oversights, and they just were not thought through. The impacts to the community were not thought through. And I wanted the council to be aware that PG&E considered that hardening of their system or making it safer for a wildfire. Now, I would estimate that they spent over $500,000 on the installation of these switches. There were existing manually operated, labor-intensive switches at every one of these locations. So they went from a manual field switch to an automatic push-a-button at a control room switch. Tremendous disruption to this community. Didn't improve their flexibility at all because, you know, they didn't add new switches. These were existing facilities. And so we really have questioned, and I appreciate you know, our city engineer and her pushback also, as to declaring this type of work. So we've become a lot more aware of what's going on. We do appreciate that those facilities are out there. They are a part of the microgrid system, but I would say that they really are not hardening. Switch for switch is just operating. It tells a tale that they intend to be in this business of shutting power off in the fall for a long time, if they're going to spend over $500,000. And I don't know, did they ever repave our last parking lot? So, moving on, just briefly, I'd like to touch on, again, the CPUC fire chairs, and I'd be happy to get with Cleo. I have been sharing that information with him and Mr. Warren, as far as working to get the fire chairs appropriately set for Placerville. Dave Warren and I, in July, had a wonderful tour with one of PG&E's senior meteorologists. She came up and spent a half a day with us, and we visited a number of locations throughout Placerville. And PG&E is committed to installing additional weather stations and even maybe a fire camera. It's in your report. I followed up on that today and hadn't heard from him. Of course, the Caldor fire kind of interrupted everybody's concerns. So I will follow up on that. It was promised off the record, I would say, with Mr. Warren and myself and PG&E's weather person, that they have engaged in a higher quality wind modeling forecast system, recognizing that their brush was way too broad in declaring these, you know, north wind events and doing the whole shutdown. So, so far this fall, we've been lucky. There hasn't really been a north wind to test that. But it's hopeful. I mean, there was clear recognition that the systems that they were using were far too impactful to entire communities in the entire regions. So that's some good news. It seems as though they are very definitely listening. I want to thank the city engineer also for her help in PG&E's scenic highway corridor violations. It was something that we discussed in April. Massive oversight on their part, apparently. Their engineering folks didn't realize that anything from Ray Lawyer Drive east on Highway 50, you basically can't do much other than replace a pole for the same size pole. You can't add, you can't go taller, you can't, I mean, very tight restrictions. So there's, I believe that Rebecca is still, she is still a gatekeeper of that information when they come in and ask for permits in the city. It's part of the review process now that the city is engaged in to make sure that PG&E does not violate the scenic highway corridor. That's a long-standing regulation. It's very clear that you do need to seek an exemption from your local government agencies, and there are a number of instances in town where they put in much higher visibility impact equipment without ever going through that, seeking an exemption. And again, unfortunately speaks to the quality of some of the work that's being contracted out there. I suppose the last thing, if you would like, is you've probably seen the comments that the new chief executive officer has talked about undergrounding 10,000 miles of line. And this tremendous push to underground. The reality in the utility world is that you could not choose a more expensive, time-consuming, and more difficult method of construction. I think the two keys is the expense and the fact that an underground system is also very difficult to operate, very slow. You have a very labor-intensive operation if you do that. Perhaps it was made hastily by PG&E, but the comment, unfortunately, has been made again. You know, they want to commit to all this undergrounding. It is not the answer, and I would ask this council to not buy into that. I don't want to take the time this evening, but I would be happy to meet one-on-one with anybody or staff that would want to know the details, the impacts of that to the community, to the private property owners, and as well as the expense to the ratepayers to trying to underground large sections of the PG&E system. I would suggest that PG&E could probably rebuild and operate an overhead system safely for about half the cost of what it would cost to do an underground system. I mean, completely rebuild the system. So that's just, I won't get into the minutia of what all involved. We've heard that, for example, Reservoir Street, they really wanted Rebecca to come up with a joint trench idea that we were all going to trench up and down Reservoir Street and put it all underground. You just don't do that. I mean, there's just so much that's involved in that. Who pays for the conversions for all those property owners? They're making decisions for a whole lot of people that aren't at the table or in the room, that they're going to be spending money. It goes from government agencies all the way to the private property owner. So please don't be confused by that. The concern needs to be in truly hardening our facilities. And as I made aware to a staff report, there is literally a 100-year-old copper conductor that's in this town back when it was Pacific States Power. That needs to be removed. We don't need fancier switches downtown. Those are in our historic neighborhoods. Bedford, Coleman, Clay Street is riddled with this 100-year-old cable. It goes from pole to pole. That would be hardening. There's obviously room for improvement. Let me just close by saying that, it is important to remember that all the PG&E folks that we work with and we see out in the field, this is not their doing. These employees are not a part of how this happened. This year it has been clear to me that there's 25 years of deferred maintenance on the facilities in every community in their service territory. So how they're going to work their way, they're not going to underground their way out of this issue. I'm glad to be able to have the ability to share this expertise and kind of examine what's going on around these things. Again, thank you very much for your time this evening. And again, I want to thank all the department heads and the chiefs for their support as I've asked questions and sought out information. Of course, happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you for all your advocacy on behalf of the city. I have no doubt that you have greatly reduced the impacts of these outages and their frequency with all the work that you've been doing on this. So it's really, really appreciated, I'm sure, by the entire community who's benefiting from your advocacy on this. Are there any questions for Mark?
I don't have any questions. I just also would like to say thank you very much for all your hard work. I know this didn't happen overnight. A lot of effort put into it, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Likewise, Mark, and I know when you were sitting here on this dais, there was a ton of work you did behind the scenes to mitigate the amount of PSPSs we had and the time and length of those that happened. Do you have a sense, are we're sort of in PSPS timing now, correct?
Absolutely.
So we could have one at any time, basically.
They've had a couple north of us. The windy spots, the traditional north wind spots that Cleve and I have been trying to point out for 5 years. Napa, Coastal Mountains, Jarbo Gap, Feather River Canyon. They seem to have cut those down significantly. So I'm seeing progress out there. They are paying attention. This is going to go on. I consider September 1st the beginning of PSPS season. We got lucky this year. If you recall last year, we had an outage on Labor Day Sunday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They were sure the wind was going to blow. They shut the power off. This town went to gridlock, and the wind never blew.
Right.
And so we're doing better this year. Right now, there's no real north wind events in the forecasts that I'm working with, but October is always challenging. Until we get a good 2 inches of rain on the ground, they're going to remain very nervous and quick-triggered. So the key is, Councilmember Saragos, is to get with the PUC, and I'd be happy to explain this urban rating. The areas in Diamond Springs that are urban would absolutely astound you, while all of our businesses are in a high risk, out of power.
Yeah, I think that's a huge, breakthrough just in terms of how we get classified and why we may have been shut down disproportionately in previous PSPSs. So definitely more to talk about on that PUC front.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Mark, I have a question about the urban rating.
Sure.
So am I understanding that if we rated our city roads urban, they would not shut the power off?
Correct.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. That's very interesting.
That's one way to determine it, Vice Mayor.
Because up until this point, I mean, it makes it seem very arbitrary. Because up until this point, I thought that there was, where these streets were located on the grid and also some objective measures of risk to these areas. But we could just say this is urban and keep the power on? Is that?
We can't say, the PUC has to say.
PUC has to say.
CPUC.
Okay, so we would have
It's
to
not
request.
it's their determination. That's what Mark is referring to.
Okay.
Going to them to request that. Specifically, we're talking about the south side of Main Street, but there
Right.
could be other areas that we say, these are no more dangerous in terms of fire risk as some other areas, so why are they in and others aren't? So that would be kind of the process to go through.
Just for example, there have been times where the entire Weber Creek Canyon has been in an urban setting where south side of Main Street is out because it's in an extreme fire rating. or a tier 2, tier 1 and tier 2. That's the verbiage that the CPUC uses. So what I carefully did is I asked all the questions to PG&E and had them provide the information. Then I went to Senator Dolly's office with it and had them provide the same map. And it's a zoomable map, and you can see the areas. And with a little bit of Chief Cordero's help, the fact that he wouldn't want to be around if a fire came out of a couple of these spots, but yet, oddly, the CPUC has given these areas urban. So there's more questions to be answered in this. This kind of not the tip of the iceberg, but there's a lot of, well, how did this happen?
I was just going to say, when were they rated that?
Thank you for asking that, Councilmember Morelli, because it seems to follow in direct steps with the areas that PG&E hooks up to the microgrids. They instantly become urban. The success that they enjoyed this year with the changes for Ray Lawyer and Placerville Drive, along about June, those appeared from tier 1 and 2 critical to extreme to urban. What changed?
Right.
Other than someone went to the CPUC and said, we're having bad public relations, we need these areas to be urban. That's why I went ahead and had started working with staff at the state to see what needed to be done.
I'm not sure if I should feel optimistic about that or really worried about that.
I was just, I wanted to ask something too. I'm going to play the devil's advocate and give a bit of support to PG&E. I think things have changed greatly. I am a believer in climate change. I think it's here, and I think all this, everything that's happened, and their lines have been here for 100 years, and I don't think that we can expect them to go and monitor every pole in where there's a tree, and a lot of these trees were little when poles were put in. Maybe there were no trees at all, and now they're there. How much should we expect of them to go to, to inspect every area and, well, that tree might fall down, or, et cetera. So I guess I'm wondering what our expectations should be.
Well, thank you for asking that question, Patty. First of all, you have to remember that they chose not to do maintenance for 25 years.
And is that's the main reason?
That is why
have not been.
The system is very fragile.
Okay.
It is not updated. There have been tremendous strides in the last 10 years for automatic switching devices that operate in the blink of an eye to protect from fire or property damage, whatever the utility chooses. So there's improvements out there. The same thing goes with the tree conditions. They have chosen for the last 20 plus years to always budget low. So we've all seen them where a ponderosa pine, for example, will have been topped 40 years ago. And the poor thing has a trunk 3 feet wide and it's 18 feet tall, and they come and chop it.
Right.
That's not a good decision. Trees are a very complicated issue, and the one thing that I share is the clear cutting that is the big advocated step to take now actually creates a whole new set of problems, because the trees that are now exposed to the weather, the sun and the wind, those now are much more likely to fail because they've lost their neighbors. All of a sudden, this tree is now sitting out on the edge, and a 50-mile-an-hour gust of wind comes down, a cleared right-of-way, hits this tree, and it falls over. Whereas this tree maybe had been surrounded by 10 other trees. So clear cutting is not the answer. And if you look at the Dixie Fire, that was about a 80-foot or 90-foot ponderosa pine that fell out of the edge of a very wide right-of-way that they'd cut up that hillside. And I don't want to be deposed for that hearing in the future, but I mean, that's on TV. There's a clear example of what I call an edge tree. So you have to spend the money to, manage and maintain and address all the types of trees and,
Catch up on 25
yeah, and
years.
and do enough trimming so that, everything works together appropriately. So, yeah, it's a very tenuous situation that they're in.
I was wondering if Chief Cordero had any thoughts that you would like to share with the urban, in regards to especially the urban rating or any other.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Taylor. I'm honestly not familiar with the urban rating that the PUC is placing on those. I'd be happy to have that conversation, get educated. We have had some discussions about some of where those lines are and the ones that are excluded from the shutoffs. And Mr. Akuna's spot on that some of those areas, in my opinion, should not be in those areas that are excluded. If we could get to an urban rating within the city, there's obviously a benefit to the citizens and into the city to be excluded from these power shutoffs, but I wouldn't want to detract from the ongoing need that we all have in this community to be mindful of vegetation management needs to take place.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I mean, the thing that I'm really conflicted about here is I would love to be able to say we're all urban and not have any more power shutoffs, especially for the business districts. But then there's a real safety component too.
Yeah, that's kind of what
where
I
I'm not
was,
sure if that would be
the answer.
But this is very interesting. And I look forward to learning more about this. We should chat more. Any other questions for Mark? All right.
Thank you, and I want to thank the chief for his support. One thing to assure you and the entire community, anything that I'm looking at, any discussion that I'm having, safety is always the number one. There is no way that we want to do anything that is going to put this community, any stick of this community at any kind of risk. So that is always the first answer and first concern, and then I work down from there. So please be assured of that. Thank you, Chief. And I'll get that in. We'll get together and I'll show you those. We'll look at the maps. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Oh, yes. This is not an action item, so we will not be making any decisions on this tonight, but I will open it up to public comment if anyone would like to speak on this item.
Good evening again, Kathy Lishman. I heard what Mark said about the undergrounding, and he has very strong feelings about that, and that he would meet with you individually to go over what he knows. But I think it would be good to have a presentation done by PG&E about that also. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. And I will bring it back to the item number 7 on the agenda, the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. The reading of the full text of all resolutions will be waived unless a council member requests otherwise. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? Seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the council.
I'll move the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All right, Regina, can we get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Saragosa?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Taylor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 8, public comment on non-agenda items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. State law prohibits the council from acting on items not listed on the agenda except by special action of the city council under specific circumstances. The mayor reserves the right to, or in this case, the vice mayor, reserves the right to limit the speaker's time to 3 minutes. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. And if you can state your name for the record, that's always appreciated.
Mandy Rodriguez. Just so you know, I reserve the right for my First Amendment, so, okay. First of all, I would like to read a correspondence between Terry Zeller and a girl named Anna. And She said, I recently noticed, this was October 26th, 2020, I recently noticed the blue line flags along Highway 50 in downtown Placerville. Well, I know that the intentions behind the flags were pure to honor the life of an officer who was killed in action. Many local residents are disturbed by these flags and their deeper meaning. The history of the thin blue line and its reference to the unspoken agreement between police officers to cover up for corrupt cops is horrible. So she goes on. Terry's response was, the blue line flags will not be put out on the anniversary next October 23rd, and I do understand the concern with the unfortunate appropriation that has occurred within these flags. I will also remind you of the bylaws that you guys put together back in probably, January? And I'll just read part of it. But in your proclamation against standing for justice, peace, and inclusion, and denouncing all forms of racism, discrimination, bigotry, bias, hate speech, and violence. So remember that. So I was surprised when I found out on October 10th, the Placerville, or the El Dorado County Progressives will be hosting CARE. CARE is the Council on American Islamic Relations, okay? CARE has direct ties with Hamas. Hamas has been associated with seeking the complete elimination of the state of Israel with suicide bombings that have targeted civilians and is designated a foreign terrorist organization by the United States. Also, this is from the ADL. This is what was used against me when I helped promote the Toys for Tots event, and which prompted your resolution or your proclamation against hate. So why are we hosting a hate group here in our town hall? Okay, and if that's okay with you, then just so you know, it's a self-defense class hosted by this terrorist group. So if you're okay with that, I don't see any reason why, Marines, veterans, Proud Boys can't hold a recruitment party here at the town hall. Is that where we're going with all this? I'm not really sure. So I'm all for free speech, and if you guys want to continue to host terrorist groups affiliated, they were known conspirators in terrorists, then why did you do this proclamation? Huh?
Can you wrap up your comments, please?
Yeah. So does that mean that we can have any kind of group here at the town hall? Is that where we're at? But no thin blue line flags to commemorate Ishmael? Is that where we're at?
Thank you, Mandy.
Hi, everybody. My name's Andrew Vonderschmidt. You might know me. I'm here to talk to you about a thing that we're doing called Save the Graves. We are Buried History, and we work to celebrate, promote, and preserve the history that is interred in El Dorado County. And I would like to introduce you to some of your history's past. Right behind me, we have Hannah. Look, not only do women have the vote, but some of them are serving on our council. Would you like to say hi?
Hello. I am Johanna Pinter, and I am a suffragette and an organizer of the California Suffrage Association. The place, Oakland, California. The date, August 27th, 1908. 200 of us brave women marched to the California State Republican Convention in order to convince the California Republican legislators to place suffrage on their ballot. This women's march was the first suffrage march that I led in the United States. It was an historic moment. And how did that march end up? What was the outcome of that Republican National Convention, Republican State Convention? You'll need to come and hear the rest of my story on August 15th, August 16th. And it's Buried History, Save the Graves. Thank you. See you there.
I also have with me one Dr. Kunkler.
Hello, good evening. I'll be portraying Dr. Kunkler. I came out in 1849 to get my share of the gold, but like most 49ers, I ended up being a store owner, grocery store owner, and a local community doctor. Thank you.
And last but not least, the first law enforcement officer to die in the line of duty in El Dorado County, Joseph Staples.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joseph Staples. I have the dubious distinction of being the first law enforcement officer to come back boots first down the hill back into Placerville because of those bandits up on Bullion Bend. All right. Look forward to seeing you guys out there.
Thank you for allowing us to take a little bit of your time. Please come out. That's October 15th or 16th at Placerville Union Cemetery. Thank you very much.
And when you tell it just a little bit, Andrew, it's called Buried History?
The organization is Buried History, and that's what we do. We work to preserve, protect, and celebrate our interred history in El Dorado County. This is our annual fundraiser, Save the Graves. Again, it's a fundraiser and it's an educational tool. You know, we want to celebrate that history.
So give a little bit of detail about how do you pay at the...
Please visit buriedhistory.org.
No, but I mean pay at the gate.
And you can also pay at the gate. Tickets are $10 and kids are $7, and anyone under 10 are free. All right.
Andrew, do you want to, so the funding goes, do you want to talk about like where the funding goes to?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a nonprofit organization under the umbrella of the Arts and Culture El Dorado. We collect the money that we get at the gate and any sponsorships. If anybody wants to write us a check, we take that money and we use it to work on projects in the cemetery. From our 2019 event, we have installed ADA compliant handrails on some of the really rickety stairs out there, and we have put in some stenciled section markers. So if you're looking for someone in the cemetery, it makes it a lot easier to find. This year, we're hoping to raise enough money to do some more of those little, more exciting stuff like fixing headstones and more upkeep.
So could you share, I'm sorry, I'm I'm a member of this
Patty
committee.
knows all about us.
But I mean, just share what's going to happen when the people enter the gate.
Oh yeah, so you come and you will walk around the cemetery, and each person will be standing near their headstone. And they get to tell their story from beyond the grave. So they know a little bit about their past. They also know the future of their descendants. Some of them, we have their living descendants there with them who can also speak about those characters. We have 8 different characters we've chosen, and it's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You take your time, bring a lunch, walk around. The cemetery grounds are awesome to walk around too, and you also get a little bit of entertainment along the way. Is that what you're looking for, Patty?
That's what I'm looking
awesome.
for.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank
what
you.
a fun way to celebrate and teach the history of Placerville. Thank you for
Thank
this
you very much.
impromptu presentation. Do we have any other public
Come
comment?
back to the cemetery. Thank you.
Good evening again, Kathy Lishman. I think Mr. Staples has a plaque next to Old City Hall in that garden there that probably needs a little repairing, by the way. I wanted to mention, too, that changing the agenda is almost not fair to the public, and it happens a lot, and there's probably good reasons to do it, but my feeling is the agenda should stay the way it is most of the time. I also wanted to say that my family owns a house in Christmas Valley, and we were part of that perfect storm where the fire came up and jumped over Christmas Valley onto Highway 89. And we are still under evacuation warning, but the firefighters did a fabulous job. Our property backs up to the Celio Ranch, and we went up there after Highway 50. No, we went up before Highway 50 opened, so it took 3 hours. And the people were out there in the property behind us with bulldozers and water trucks, and They had done a fire line right behind our fence. It was amazing. And to see online some of the things that someone who drives around with cameras and shows all the places, it gave us a lot of comfort knowing how well that area was watched, but we still have to be careful with the fire coming from the cables area. I wanted to mention tonight on your ARPA, you have a sewer and water bill assistance program of $50,000. And I know Dave knows about this, but the county is going to have a big program for that can help. They've never had water and sewer before. They do electricity. They help with electricity. They help with wood. I think they probably help with propane for low-income people who need help with their bills. And so they're going to have a program also. They'll probably sign the contract in December, and early 2022 it will be available. I have no idea how much money they will have in that program, but it will be for all the water districts to help people, because water rates and sewer rates keep going up, and I don't know how people afford them. And it's a pilot program. I wanted to mention also that they have a weatherization program to help people. They can help people pay their electric bills. And like I said, wood. I think it would be a good idea if the city, in the next water bill, if possible, put in some information about those programs so that people in the city could know about them. And one of the things, and they help with shut-off notices, one of the things, there was a moratorium, I think, on people having to pay maybe their electric bills that goes off on Friday. And so there are going to be a lot of people that are going to really need help. And so it's important that people know that these programs are available through the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Good evening, Jane McGinnis. I wanted to share some information on the subject of care of the homeless. The county budget has been put together, and despite a statement in their strategic plan that they want to do whatever is necessary to resolve the homeless crisis, there is no money in the budget for homeless housing. Despite many people who walked up to the podium and had something to say about it. The homeless community seems to be very hesitant about the hostess program. Part of it is, I think, because of the location. That's what's been expressed to me anyway, as I've talked to people. Part of it is because over time, the sheriff, who is an excellent law enforcement officer, has not endeared himself, perhaps, to the homeless community. We have to remember that many of the people who are homeless have a different mindset than people who are part of functioning society, feel sometimes a little pursued. So the hostess plan, anyway, having said that, this is the reason for the letter that Cleve will have received from Upper Room and Housing El Dorado. I know that Wendy Thomas was very dismayed because she said, we talked for so long about having a plan, and now we've got a plan and all the homeless advocates don't want it. It's not that at all, but it was the kind of plan that was put forward. Tents are not shelter. Shelter is a roof and walls and heat, safety from the weather. But the main message that I took to the Board of Supervisors and that I wanted to share with you, we are trying to do this in a silo universe. The government's going to do it, the city's going to do it, the county's going to do it, the advocates should do it, the faith-based community should do it. All of us have a place in this puzzle. Many of the homeless advocates have specialized knowledge. and a particular expertise, but we don't have the knowledge and the expertise that government does. We don't have access to the same resources that government does. I sympathize with John Heidel when he said, how can we budget for this? We don't even know what's needed. And I understand that. There are many needs. You've got housing first, I know you hear it all the time, mental health intervention, social needs support. They need IDs. They need help with Social Security.
Jane, could you
addiction
wrap up your
treatment.
comments, please?
Beg your pardon?
Could you wrap up your comments, please? Could you wrap up your comments?
I am so sorry.
That's okay.
I simply wanted to let you know that on Thursday this week at 7 o'clock at Federated Church, there is going to be a meeting called by the Vandekars and Maureen, Dion Perry. There's going to be a lot of homeless advocates there. The first step is to address winter shelter, but the larger step is to gather a lot of people together, some of whom haven't met each other yet, despite all the years they've worked. Kara, we really hope that you can make it. I'm kind of hoping Michael might show up. We invited Wendy, but the long-term goal is to work together.
Thank you.
City and county.
What was the date again?
It's this Thursday. Day
Oh,
after
this
tomorrow,
Thursday?
7 p.m. at Federated Church. I hope you'll be there, Patty.
Thank you for your comments.
You bet. Thank you.
So that is Thursday, the 30th, 7 p.m. at Federated. I hope that Cleve could make it. I hope that Joe could send somebody from Placerville Police, because they need to be part of the representation of the answer. I just want to say that public comment being said at a set time, I think could get more public participation. We didn't have that much tonight, but the people from the graves, I'm looking forward to that, because my business is resurrection, and so is yours.
Did you have anything to do with them?
Well, we know who does, and he is the one who moves the mountains, and we're all looking to him and to help us work together. I'm calling in the women of El Dorado County to help get a shelter for the homeless. All the women that are out there perhaps watching on video, the women in this room, the women on the council, women bring forth life. And I'm calling in the men, but the women need to speak to the council, write to the council, speak to the mayor. A couple things I want to touch on. The hostess program. It's a good start. We're going to call Liz Drummond and meet with her. Having Jane and I, is she willing to downscale it to what's reasonable? We're looking at some property called the Shin Ranch. It was where the animal shelter was going to be. The county has $2 million in its budget for animal control. It has nothing for the homeless. It's shameful in that degree, but at least you all are facing the fact that the mayor a month ago said, we realize we're 10 to 15 years behind, but at least we're moving on it. In the immediate window, I am asking for $10,000 of ARPA funds being set aside for the immediate shelter this winter. I have friends at NPR and in public media in Sacramento. I want Placerville to be known as the city with a heart. We don't want to be the only county without a year-round navigation center. We certainly don't want to be the heart of the gold rush and leave 500 homeless out in the rain, the snow, the sleet, and the freezing weather that we would not leave our animals out in. We have an ordinance to protect our pets. Think of your pets that you love, and they love you back. but we've got to love the homeless, the animals that have 2 legs and a heart, that need public hygiene on Upper Broadway. And they need you to stand up for them immediately this winter. And the county will follow you because you all are leaders. There's other things I would talk about, but thank you for listening and thank you for moving ahead. And let's set aside some American Rescue Plan for this winter to help Pathways or wherever Upper Room finds a warehouse or someplace to house the least, the last, and the lost. Jesus said, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, you've done it to me. Let's do what his heart is calling us all to do. God bless you.
Thank you, Jonathan. All right. Seeing no other public comment, we will close that and move on to written communications. Do we have any written communications?
None at this time. Thank you.
All right. We have nothing under item 9, items pulled from the consent calendar. We have nothing, let's see. We are all done with item 12, so moving on to 13, council reports from other agency meetings. El Dorado Transit and El Dorado Transportation Commission will meet next week, so I have nothing to report there. LAFCO is council member No, who is absent. Anything from SACOG?
We had a meeting. It was basically had one presentation on D&I, so diversity and equity within transportation for SACOG. We were supposed to have on October 1st our to get together, but because of COVID, it got canceled again. So we're hoping to meet in person, just to have. To convene and actually get to know each other. For some of us, we've never even met some of our colleagues. I think the same way on some of the other boards. But so we're looking at maybe in December to be able to do that. And then for Pioneer, we really the main thing was there's been a couple of meetings and one in El Dorado Hills. Cleve, have we had the one here in Placerville yet?
No, there. If you give me a minute, I can find the date.
Yeah, it's coming up.
It has been set. Let's see if I can find it real quick. If you want to continue,
I mean, and the idea is really to give that introduction to the public about Pioneer, let them know a little bit more about, who they are, what they're doing, the type of programs that they offer, and to answer general questions from the public about. As we move forward towards that next year. So.
Didn't they run an ad in the paper? Didn't I see?
They have. They've had ads. They've done social media.
Okay.
We could do better on the social media. I think I brought up last time where it was not the greatest, but so we're gonna probably do a little bit more there as well. But and I apologize, Cleve. I should have wrote that down myself.
It's November 2nd.
November 2nd
is the meeting that will be here, and it'll be in the board chambers, actually.
Oh, it's going to be at
Board of Supervisors
BOS.
chambers. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, up on Fairlane.
That's right.
Because they want to do it virtual also. They have better setup for that than we do to do it so you can either attend in person or do a virtual. So.
Gotcha. So November 2nd, 6 o'clock.
I believe it's 6 o'clock. I'm looking to see if they set a time for it yet. But I believe it's 6 o'clock.
Probably. Okay.
But we will make sure we push that out on our web and social media that we have, et cetera. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Cleve. That's it.
And Placerville Fire Safe Council.
I don't have a report. Do you want to share your meeting with Mark?
Not a lot there to add. I did have a good meeting with Mark Egbert. I think and I've shared that, I think, with the council. Believe there are some opportunities there for us to not only increase and improve our plans that we have for Placerville, but also potentially secure additional funding for fire, for the future. Additional funding for mitigation also. So I'm encouraged by that.
There's a lot of grants out there, but they're really difficult to find, to get. So, real quick, I'm going to put a plug in for Kara and I. When we were going around where they have all the booths, talked to several, their grant writing is a big specialty now, and we talked to several of them, and it was, it's almost like a necessary thing that maybe we're gonna need to start including in our budget to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I read the California Consulting was, one of them that does that. So, yeah, it's almost like, it's basically like having a lobbyist, because it's just such a
Exactly.
difficult path to
Right.
traverse sometimes, and they're experts in what they're doing.
Right.
Request for future agenda items. Nothing at this time. And city manager and staff reports.
Just a couple of things I wanted to mention quickly, and the first one is asking for some assistance and make the announcement to council. We are down a member on our our Economic Advisory Committee, and it's the Placerville Drive representative that we need.
Yeah.
So if you know people, I know Patty, you know some on Placerville Drive,
Okay.
but businesses down there, if any of you know people, please encourage them to apply. I don't think we have any applications yet. Is that right, Regina? And we've had it open for a while, so.
Is there a deadline for that?
We do not have a deadline. We've left it open due to the fact that we had a deadline at first, got nothing, and so we opened it back up and did not set a deadline, so.
Well, I'm guilty because I didn't realize it. I really didn't.
Well,
You know who really came to the forefront when we were trying to organize was the lady that's, she holds a position at the fairgrounds, and I'm trying to remember her name, and excuse me for forgetting it, but I
Yep.
maybe could talk to them.
Yeah,
and see
whoever, if you know businesses down there, have any
Okay.
relationship with them, if you can encourage
Okay.
them to complete an
I'll talk
application, that would be
I'll
great.
talk to, what's her name at Moore, Susie, and maybe
Yep.
she might have some suggestions, because she knows a lot of folks down there.
Okay.
Might.
And just quickly, I've sent out a polling to you on the next governance workshop. I think Michael and Kara responded, so I got yours and Patty.
What were the dates?
The 20th and 27th of October. And I think, I will say, unfortunately,
The 20th.
the 20th does
better.
not work. No, I think you said the 20th doesn't work.
Yeah,
for you,
no, for
right?
me it doesn't. Yeah, I'm out of town. On the
And I know
20th.
Kara said that was, she can do either one, but
it's
the
fine.
20th was better, but
works,
she
yeah.
can do either one. So anyway, I'm hoping to get that scheduled. The other thing that I'd want you to, just a reminder, take a look at and think about is the idea of creating our strategic plan. I sent out the county's strategic plan recently to you. Hopefully you got that. Just to show you get some ideas to start looking at that. But I really would like to do something this fall, like we talked about, to put that together. I think we can do it. I mean, a lot of people bring in, big facilitators to run meetings and do those type of things. I think maybe we can do it internally. I'm happy to use my staff to help run that and put it together. And I think we have a very bright council that can put that together. And we have a format that we can use. I think the format of that the county has is very good.
When did you
And-
send us that?
Do any of you remember getting it?
I
You don't?
remember getting it.
Did
I
you
can't
remember it,
rem-
Michael?
I think so. Although there was a period where your emails were going into my spam for some reason. So
That's okay. I won't take offense to that, Michael.
I don't know why. I was like, how could that
I
happen?
will.
But-
I will send it out again tomorrow.
gonna say-
Or you can just go on the county's website. Right at the top, it says strategic plan. You can click on that and bring it up yourselves. But I'll send out. I think what I sent was actually just a link to it, not the actual plan.
Okay.
But I don't remember for sure. So, but I'm happy to send that out to you again. And again, it's just to give you some ideas. But I just want to mention too, one of the things that I mentioned in that email was the potential, if we do the government workshop from 9 to 1, would there be any interest in taking the rest of the day and talking about strategic plan if we decided to? I know it makes for a long day, but it seems like we run out of days that we can find to
Right.
do things. So just think about that, and when you get a chance, get back to me on what you think about doing it that way. We can always find another day too, but anyway, just a thought.
I have either day open, so
Okay.
if the 27th is the best, I can.
Okay, I'll mark that down
I've
for you.
worked a lot of 12 to 14-hour days.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Par for the course.
Exactly.
So,
All right,
okay.
that's it for me.
All right, and then there's a number of upcoming agenda items. private sewer ordinance, tobacco retail ordinance, A-board signs, parking revisions. Anyone that's interested in this can see this section in the agenda if they're watching from home. And at that, we will adjourn the meeting at 6:57. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.